an artist is, in my opinion, a supreme manifester. And have you had any specific encounters where you first realized that power to bring intangible ideas or visions into physical reality or this reality?
For me, it's quite crazy that things that I imagine now they physically exist, and that moment of ideas that only me can see them because they're not visually shared, and then I have this power or this ability to put it there, and then that's what I was thinking about, that's what I'm sharing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how we doing? We live in NYC for a special edition of Beyond the Hustle. As you know, we are the nexus between spirituality and entrepreneurship. And we're here for a very special rendition with Marie Duval. How do I say your name properly?
Well, the French way is Marie-Chloé, but you can say Marie-Chloé.
Marie-Chloé
Yeah.
Duval, right?
Yeah.
And Marie-Chloé Duval is a premier artist here in New York City. As you can see, we're live here in her very eccentric studio. Mm-hmm. And we're gonna talk a little bit today about some of her art, of course, her origin story, and maybe we'll get a little bit philosophical as well. But I'd like to welcome you all to the show.
Thank you.
Hello, Marie.
Hey.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you again.
And I know we haven't seen each other for maybe like a year and a half,
Yeah.
right? Where did we originally meet? Do you remember?
I think it was like an art-related event. It was an exhibition in Chelsea, actually.
Really?
In like a loft.
It was at the Bus Gallery?
I can't remember which gallery it was, but I remember it was in Chelsea, upper level. Yeah.
Right. I feel like it might have been at a friend of mine, Josh Zeweg. He has a gallery, the building in I think it's 27th Street on West 4th.
Exactly. Yes, that's the one.
I remember, and I remember meeting you, and of course, instantly. I remember now. It was the one in Meatpacking District, because your art was on display. No.
Yes, it was at the Triangle Loft in Meatpacking.
There it is.
I have this big orange piece.
Right.
Yes.
Tell me about that piece first and foremost.
It belongs to this still ongoing series called Overthink, and it was the first piece I was making in color, which now seems crazy, but I used to paint black and white.
Right. And
the whole idea behind Overthink series is that we're so confined in our minds of what are the norms, how we should behave, how we should just walk into society, into life. And I'm like, why do we have this kind of box and limitation that we create? Why don't we let it flow and let it go?
Right.
And I think at first was this kind of like reminder for myself, and as I started putting it out there, I saw people being, it feels like me. So there's like this overthinking and almost this like paralysis analysis moment of like, there's too many things, so I'm like freezing a little bit.
Right. This is a cool episode because you are, I would say, the first New York City artist on this show. And as you know, I'm in the art business, so I've spoken to many artists and whatnot. But this is special because I think you are living the dream of so many aspiring artists, regardless of.
I feel like I'm living a dream and a real reality too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to dive right into, kind of what this show is about, and I'm going to take you through 5 different focus areas.
Perfect.
But I'm going to throw some questions at you, and hopefully that will expand upon some of the origins of Marie-Chloé Duval and your art. So instantly, what is your why and what wakes you up every day?
I'm sure it's this desire of dialogue and connection with human beings. I'm in constant interest and curiosity of learning about people, but also learning of like how we navigate. I've always been fascinated as much as like how I anchor into my own experience, and that layers into who I am today as other people. What's their story? And I go to the restaurant and I see a group of friends. I'm like, wow, I could be with these people, you know? Like, I'm very much fascinated about learning about how people get together and learn and navigate life, basically. I think that's my why, and that's like the reason I paint. It's to express that feeling and open the dialogue about it.
100%. And I would love for you to discuss that synergy between cultivating like mindfulness, being aware of what your talents are, your artistry is, with ambitious goal setting. I know, you know, being in New York, you kind of have to have this, both of these arms.
I think they're both equally important, because you can easily get lost because there's so much to do and there's so much to achieve.
Right.
But for me, I can only speak for me, it's really about this balance that I know now. I've been an artist for 8 years full time. I know how I work. I know that I need to be very cautious of my studio practice time. I know when I need to rest. I'm doing a lot of sports on my time as well. So I know this balance is very important, and that keeps me going. But I'm definitely very ambitious as well. But with the time, I feel like when I moved to New York 3 years ago, it's like, okay, I need to do everything. And then I was like, this is not the way for me. And also that translates into my own personal life. I'm not interested in having 200 friends. Like, I'm interested in having the friends that I know I can call all the time. And I approach my professional life the same way, as much as I can, yeah.
That's wonderful. And do you have any mindfulness practices that kind of give you that energy, that inspiration?
Running. I guess running, yeah. I did this like Vipassana 10 days in silent, and
wow.
It was very, not like life-changing. I don't like one thing changes your whole life, but I've kept very interesting elements from it along the last many years of doing it, and just being, it sounds stupid and cliche, but being in the moment. And I'm very good at separating things. Like, okay, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this. I'm making a to-do list. I always know what I'm gonna do the next day and the next week. So that really helps me being mindful about the time and being present. So that really is my way of keeping as much sanity as I can.
Of course. And when you talk about the dialogue of your art, is there a moment that sparked that conversation within yourself for you to then channel it through painting and artistry?
I've traveled around, so traveling is always like a big part, like me being in different situations, different environment. I'm from a small village northeast of Quebec. I live in New York, so not that I have different personalities, but the environment brings different sides of me. So I feel like anytime I'm in a different environment, I'm facing inspiration, you know, like our inspiration's coming at me. So that really triggers that, and also observing people and taking time to just sit and look and have time to do nothing. I also plan my time to do nothing, which is crazy, but that time is very precious for triggering inspiration and observation of what's around me.
Right.
And I think it's a process too. It's I'm not waiting for inspiration to come, but I'm really willing to let the things that I'm doing lead me to the next thing. I like to think as myself as a process painter. I'm not planning what I'm gonna do. I have an idea, but that one thing brings me to that second thing, and then I blow it up on the next painting. I make it super small, and always kind of like learning in the process of making.
That's wonderful. Take us to an idea right now that you're obsessed with.
Oh, I'm totally obsessed with this idea of the evidence of human. And I think like I've painted I've painted crowds, I've painted like the figures so much, and I did a series of landscapes. It was still about the land where we anchor, but now with the flowers, it's touching this idea that most of them are cut flowers. This human, wherever they are, cut that thing. It traveled, it gets to you as a gesture of whatever the meaning the person aims to share, and then they're left there, and they will be in decay, and that's like this like evidence of a passage, evidence of a presence, but also the table that was built, the walls that were built in this space that I'm creating is also a mark of a human being there, and this kind of exchange notion of presence and absence and the time passing, I'm totally obsessed. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I think about that quite often too. About, I asked you the obsession of idea, but it is macro too. Why are humans obsessed with being remembered?
Yeah.
Or leaving a trace, leaving a mark? Why do you think that is?
I don't know if it's a fundamental thing. I have no idea, but I think deeply we all want to leave something. Like, we have kids, like we are leaving something, we're creating something. I don't know about leaving the trace, but I feel like the desire to make something, either in the gesture or in the making of a thing, is quite essential as a human, like seeing something exist. Yeah.
Have you ever had encounters with this reality where things that you've imagined? I mean, of course, an artist is, in my opinion, a supreme manifester. And have you had any specific encounters where you first realized that power to bring intangible ideas or visions into physical reality or this reality?
I can't pinpoint, but for me it's quite crazy that things that I imagine now they physically exist, and that moment of ideas that only me can see them because they're not visually shared, and then I have this power or this ability to put it there, and then that's what I was thinking about, that's what I'm sharing. And I've always been quite aware of that beautiful translation from the mind to the physical, and I just find it absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Where do you think those come from?
I think it's trained. I've taught art and so much, and I've always heard people surrounding me, I can't draw, I can't paint. I'm like, well, I was a criminologist. I never thought I could paint. I just didn't envision that. But as I started, the imagination is growing, and if you're open to what comes and open to failure as well, because if I go back to my first portrait, it's pretty terrible, but open to learning. I think for me, everything that I do, I learn from it, and then I'm just like, it's just growing. So I feel like being open to what things are teaching you. Yeah.
Have you ever had any mentors or teachers in this process that have really inspired, influenced you? Could be alive, could be not with us.
I started painting, I didn't know anything about painting. So I think that helped me in a sense, because I didn't know what was good, what was bad, what was correct, formal, not formal. And it was very genuine, what I wanted to share. I did have someone back when I was academic, who was very important into this transition into the art world, who asked me, what do you want to do in the morning? Do you want to write or do you want to paint? And we had this whole conversation about where you get your energy from. And it was very fundamental, because I realized that for me, writing scientific papers was something I loved to do, but it was taking a lot. And then when I would be in the studio as a side passion, I had to force myself to get out. Like I could be there, like I really, and I still have to force myself to get out of the studio and rest and do other things, because I would literally spend my life in here. So I was like, okay, this thing brings me a lot of energy, even though I'm tired. I'm feeling energized mentally. So that was like, okay, I'm switching, you know. And then I put my PhD on pause, and it's an 8-year pause at this point. So
that's a wild.
Yeah.
You know, I have a question here. What is your take on breaking free from societal norms and redefining what success looks like?
I'm not sure about the concept of success, because I think it's a moving one, and I think success for me, I have big goals, but
maybe I can rephrase. Maybe unconventional paths to success, and how did you break free from those societal?
Oh, that was hard. It took me a year. I literally was enrolled in the PhD, and I decided to take a gap here, and I really processed a lot of things during that time.
Right.
And it was this moment of like, what am I doing? You know, it really was this moment of, what is the goal in life? And I don't think there's a goal in life, you know. But if I'm happy on a daily basis, that's a pretty good start, you know. And also, I always make decisions with what's the worst case scenario in my mind. Moving to New York was one of them. I was like, oh, what's gonna happen? I was like, oh, worst case scenario, I lived in New York for 1 year, hated it, and I'm back to Montreal, you know. And if I can handle the worst case scenario, I'm good, you know. So that was like but it took me a lot of time to accept, and I think for me, being mature enough to be like, okay, I'm not gonna have the outside seal of approval. Oh, I'm a doctor, like people will assume I'm smart. Like now I had to like do the work of like, no, I have to prove to myself, and I have to be okay with what I'm doing and my choices. So it was a process, but then I was like, oh, like this is it, you know, like I don't need to follow the norms, but we'll always fall into some kind of like norm or boundaries, and it's just to find which one you want to break and which one you want to follow, because they can be helpful. And knowing them is definitely helpful.
That's amazing. You mentioned currency. I think that's really cool, because we talk about currency on this show, and what type of currencies, you know, either from, you know, financiers to crypto blockchain people to artists to musicians. And I feel like currency is synonymous with energy in many ways. So what's your definition of energy, and how do you think that relates to currency?
Well, in the sense of like, you have a limited amount of things, and if we take it to currency, and then where do you put your money, you know? Where do you
allocate? I think you're trying to say allocate. That's the word, right?
That's the word. You know, where you allocate that. Well, the energy is the same thing. So it's basically, there's a finite amount of things. So you have to decide, and then where you put it, how it comes back. So it's the same. If you spend X amount of money on that thing, is it gonna bring you, fulfill the need that you have, or the desire, or the dream? And the energy is exactly the same for me. Yeah.
Wow. So you're almost saying how you invest energy.
Oh, for sure.
From a currency mindset. And what starts propagating.
And I don't think seeing things as like a cost and benefit is a bad thing. There's a high benefit to when I do nothing, you know? And there's a high benefit when I invest in the right people, and when I give my time to people that I believe in. Like, so there's a high cost to giving and receiving, and vice versa, you know? Right.
I think that's really interesting that you're talking about this concept of almost doing nothing is creating space for you to do the most amazing
freaking
things.
Essential. And I'm really bad at it, but...
In New York, I would imagine it's hard,
I'm really
right?
bad at it, but I know exactly how much I need, and I keep it very very under control.
Where would be the most perfect, amazing dream of a place for you to absolutely do nothing, absorb it all, and then squeeze it out onto a canvas?
See, I always have, like, I'm from a village, I always have this dream of like, oh, it's so beautiful, I want to go back. I love it, but I'm not at a point that I would love it 365 days a year. But I know that I need that and I need the change. But for me, it's like, okay, for that month or 2 months of residency in this village in Greece, that's a do nothing. I'm doing stuff, but also in my personality, I have a lot of energy and I need to do things. But I need to have a contemplation moment that's very essential. And I've been dreaming, I'm not there yet, but I know having this like villa in the south of France or Italy, and just, you know, like food and people is very important for me, are very important.
Mm-hmm.
Having like time to have, you know, beautiful food shared with amazing people, because it's not about the food, it's about what you share with other people for me. And then have time to sip on my coffee and then maybe a second one in the morning, you know, like I'd rather get up early. I get up earlier to have time to drink my coffee slowly because it's a ritual that I love. So
ritual,
yeah,
for sure.
In a decade or two, probably will be in Europe contemplating the olive trees growing.
Sounds like a long time, a decade or two. I feel like you could.
I feel like
you could do it in half the time.
Yeah, but whenever I'm ready, whenever it feels right, it will be the time. I just know that now is not what I want or need. So
I feel you. You know, one thing that struck me about you, for everybody watching, you probably can see your studio. Maybe it looks like, you know, a classic artist studio. But on the outside of your studio, I feel like you strike me as very practical, very goal-oriented, as we spoke before, ambitious. Do you have any, or can you share any practical strategies for other aspiring artists for kind of mastering your mind, overcoming those obstacles, and maybe even achieving certain performance goals?
Yeah, I wish I had answers. And I mentor a lot of artists, and it's like, there's as many paths in art as there are artists. So it's like, there's not like a formula, unfortunately, because like it would be easy to just follow the guidebook, but yes, in the outside, like people tell me, oh, you don't look like an artist. I'm like, what does an artist look like? This is like, so now officially I'm like looking like an artist now, because like
because we did catch you in the middle of a very busy day.
Yes, but I think what I say to everyone is show up, and whatever that means for you.
That consistency.
If it's following up to emails, if it's answering, being on time for a deadline, going to the openings, whatever it means and whatever your career needs, just show up for yourself, show up in your studio. And yeah, I guess that would be my thing. Yeah.
I like that. I mean, I feel like when I ask this question to artists, it's always interesting because I like to ask almost an antonym question to certain types, where the business oriented, super scientific guest, I love to ask him a spiritual, artistic question.
Yeah.
And then vice versa.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're in that balance.
I also come from a very academic teaching statistics. So I have this, like, my engineer brother would not say that I'm the most rational mind, but I do have a rational mind and a logistic oriented one. And when I switched to art, I was like, okay, I want to make it work. You know, how do I give myself the means of doing this for the rest of my life? Because this is not my hobby, this is my career. So it comes with a part of the job, you know, like I put my hat as a painter and that's all I think about. And I'm really good at separating things. So when I paint, I don't think about the business and the art world and whatnot. But when I'm not here, I have a job, and it's to show up and be professional and be consistent and cohesive, you know? So yeah, eventually do I want to have like less of my time that is spent hustling? yeah, because I want more time in the studio. But they both inform each other in a way. Yeah.
That's cool. I feel like some of the most, at least my favorite artists, most inspirational artists, are actually quite intellectual. They are really trying to communicate something. From your art, what do you hope will be communicated to the viewer?
Emotion. Feel something, see it from far, and like feel that you're connecting to it. Maybe you don't understand it. Maybe you hate it, and that's totally fine. Because
Right.
if you hate it, my job is done. I give you an emotion. I don't care what is your emotion. If you pass by and you feel absolutely nothing, the emptiness, and you don't even like, it doesn't trigger something. Because there are pieces that I hated, but I still think about it. So I feel like the work of the artist is done. It's to put something that makes the viewer have an emotion or a reflection or a question. I'm not there to give answers. I'm there to ask questions, whatever they are. Because my questions, when I look at my work, are very different than the questions you have when you look at my work. So that's what I want. Yeah.
Is there a question that is at the forefront of what drives you?
It's more like this whole idea of like understanding all these constructs and these, path and norms that we follow or not follow, and really working in the idea of like what we see is not what exists, and always challenging the perception of the person, always hoping that the people will not accept what they see at first and just go beyond. And that's in my work, but that's in life too. You judge this person, but like why? Like because it's probably because of your own thing. So I guess always asking myself and everyone just to dig a bit deeper.
That's cool that you said that. Even as I look past you, I see a piece here where there's like a bouquet on the table, but then there's like a nice bouquet left in the corner, and it's like far away. So that's fascinating that you're encouraging that.
Yeah.
That motion almost.
Yeah.
To go to the farthest corner.
Yeah.
It's like you left something there for us to.
Yeah, little cues.
Right. Here's a good question, the classic. YOLO or YALA? You only live once or you always live again?
Oh, I never even thought about it. No, I like the idea of finite time.
Infinite or finite?
Finite.
Like.
I have no problem with the idea that you. So.
Infinite is unlimited, or do you mean finite is limited?
Like you live your life.
You only live once. You only get one life.
Die.
Right.
And the other one is you're gonna live forever.
Right.
Well, I would like to be able to read all the books that I've been wanting to read, and like have a whole infinite. But I don't think I would feel like how it is precious. I like that it's finite, and I have no problem with the idea that it's gonna end, because now I know that there's an end, and I know that I can savor the moments and the different cycle and the different chapters within that given unknown time, No problem with that. Yeah.
That's wonderful. We're going into a section where I talk about something called peak phenomenon, where I feel like when you are doing what you love and you're passionate about it, and like you mentioned, you're not worried about the outside world. You're not worried about a roof over your head or food in your mouth, and you truly are focused on your complete supreme potential. I feel like certain things start to happen that are unexplainable. And I was wondering if you could tell me about a story or experience where someone or something was affected by what you created that changed the way you viewed your own capability.
Yeah, it was years ago. I had just started. I think I was still doing my master back in the days. And then this man saw a piece that someone acquired, emailed me, I did a commission for him. We exchanged, sent some sketches, make the piece, and then he comes to my home. At the time, I had like a 2-bedroom. One was my studio, and then the light was better in my bedroom. So I welcomed this stranger, and he comes in, and he sees the piece, and he starts crying because it was like a lot of emotion, and it was like many years ago. And then I understood like this beautiful moment of me and a stranger in my home. Literally, we didn't talk. No, it was just so intense and so beautiful, and we exchanged something, and I think that's when I learned how this art, the art I'm making, and the art in general, have a power and a beautiful impact on people. And I think about it often. Yeah.
I was gonna say, how do you recreate that feeling, or is that a feeling that is motivating you to recreate or create?
I don't think every moment should be that intense, and they don't have to be that intense all the time, because then it loses the purpose. But I'm not trying to recreate anything, but I'm like really trying to make the best art, and the art that I want to look at, and that for me brings an emotion. And I live with my art in my home, and it makes me happy. And I live with art that I collected, and it makes me happy. So yeah, I guess in a way I hope my art touches people. To which extent, that's out of my control.
And tell me a little bit about flow state and how you feel in flow state, and whether that starts to create certain miracles.
I don't know about the miracles, but I'm definitely in my mind. When I paint, anyone was like, you tell me you'll be there in 2 seconds, and I'll be like, okay. And then I go back into my paintings, and then for sure I scream. Because I totally, not that I forgot, but it's just, I'm gone. And anyone who knows me, they know that I can switch it off and there. And then nothing else is around. It's kind of wild. And I know I've done those paintings. I'm not, but part of me looks at it and I'm like, oh, it feels like I haven't done it, because it feels like I was just there and now I'm in the real world. It's very strange, and it sounds super
fragmented almost.
Yeah, and I love that place, and really often I can notice I'm in that state, and I don't step back because I don't want to see what's happening, because I just trust that I'll make good decision while being in it. And sometimes I get back and I'm like, oh my god, what did I do? It's so bad, but then it's really nice to
which is the process.
It's a very cool process. Yeah.
Right. I guess before we sign off, is there a message that you would like to maybe tell either your future self or your past self? And it can be
my
both.
past self is happy. My future self, I hope too. But yeah, just if I keep waking up happy. Yeah, and keep being a child and looking at the shadow and be like, oh my god, and then you can't stop looking at this little things, keeping that sense of I don't know how you say that, curiosity, which is
the wonder.
Yes, wonder, curiosity, and being amazed by things, amazed by people, amazed by moments. Yeah.
Right. And are there anything, at least for maybe people watching who have been following you or haven't followed you yet, who they can look forward to, an art show or upcoming projects, whatnot?
Well, many projects. The MFA thesis is coming at the end, mid-May 2025. So that's going to be the completion of quite a big chapter. Many different shows coming in the meantime, and started a alternative art space. I am very, very lucky to have a home that I live by myself with big walls.
Right.
And I just decided that I would offer the space for artists. it's not a gallery. It's just a place to create your own art show and invite a created selection of people to see the work. So maybe sometimes you just need that space and show that new body of work to the people that you want them to see it.
Right.
So giving that opportunity for people to, maybe that's very useful for the next step they want to take.
Right.
So I'm very excited about it and very anchoring my actions and my desires into like this community.
Right.
So
that's wonderful. I mean, not only artists, I have seen that you do some great curated events, and you do have the ability to bring the community together. So that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, I always love that.
100%. And I know that she's looking for a gallery, right? A big gallery space. Is that right? So anybody, if you see this, feel free to contact Marie. And of course, we'll tag your Instagram.
Amazing.
And is there any other things you'd like to say to the people before we sign off?
Have fun.
100%. We usually do longer conversations. I know you guys are used to the long ones, but
I got class.
Exactly. New York City time is very snappy. So if you haven't already, make sure you comment, like, and smash that subscription button. And I'll see you all on the next one. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. That was so lovely.
Awesome.
I loved all the questions.